Welcome to a Chesapeake Public Schools Family Empowerment webinar presented by the Office of Family and Community Engagement. Our office, which is part of the Department of Engagement, aims to build meaningful partnerships that inspire, engage, and empower families, educators, and community organizations to support the initiatives of Chesapeake Public Schools. You can reach us at our main phone line or via email at the contact information listed on the screen. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to working together to strengthen our community and support our students. Our goal is to continue providing families with valuable webinars, events, and information to empower them in the educational setting. We are excited to offer our families the Peak Parent University course catalog, which provides an overview of all of our events for the school year. Here, you can also catch up on pre-recorded webinars, explore a wide range of educational resources, and make valuable community connections to enhance your family's well-being. Please take a moment to scan the QR code, which will give you access to our Peak Parent University. This will provide you with monthly updates, including descriptions, times, and locations of upcoming events. Thank you for joining us for a webinar on executive functioning, helping your child develop their air traffic control system. Today we have joining us Mrs. Meredith Sargall, a student engagement and resource counselor from the Chesapeake Public Schools Office of Student Conduct and Support. Welcome, Meredith, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Let me share. All right, welcome to today's webinar on supporting your child's executive functioning. As we said, my name is Meredith Sargall, and I will be your flight attendant for today's learning. Before we begin, just so you know who is speaking to you, here is a little information about me. I am a licensed school counselor and, as mentioned, currently work as a student engagement and resource counselor here in the Chesapeake Public Schools, where I act as both a behavior consultant and trainer for our K-5 schools. I received my master's in counseling with dual specialties in both school and mental health counseling, and I have spent 13 years working in Title I schools in Arizona in urban settings as a school counselor prior to coming to Chesapeake. And during my time as a school counselor, I received both extensive training and experience in working with students with emotional and behavioral challenges and disabilities. I also have personal experience as well. I am a mother of 2 children, one of whom has been diagnosed with severe hyperactive type ADHD, so this topic is near and dear to my heart. So now that you know a little more about me, let's get started with our main focus for today. First, we are going to start with a little simulation. Now, this may cause some internal turbulence as the task is meant to be challenging. This is going to be an honor code sort of thing, as obviously I can't see if you are engaging with this task. However, the simulation will help you understand a little bit more about the kinds of challenges some kids face when they are struggling with executive functioning. So first, you will need to get a lined piece of paper, like a notebook paper, though a blank page is fine if you don't have lined paper, and a pencil or a pen. Go ahead and pause the webinar here if you need to in order to get those materials. I will now read a set of instructions aloud. Each instruction will only be read once, so please listen carefully. If you don't have time to finish a step as I'm moving through the instructions, come back to it as you have time. I'll be asking you to write down information as well as call out answers to questions. At any time during the simulation, you may tap out, but I encourage you to try to keep going until the end. All right, so if we are ready, start by writing your name at the top of the paper. Then jump down 3 lines and draw a triangle inside of a square. Then on the line below, write the days of the week in reverse order, starting with Wednesday. All right, everyone, please loudly call out your favorite fruit. Thank you. Now, write a sentence using a color, a number, and a month of the year. Don't forget to go back and finish any unfinished steps. All right, everyone, please pause your writing to change writing in utensils. You can either trade with someone nearby or get a new pen or pencil from your own supplies. Now write the name of any animal that starts with the letter R and draw a box around the name you wrote. Then write tomorrow's date at the top of the paper. Make sure you finish up the last step if you haven't already. Okay, everyone, please loudly call out the color of the shirt someone sitting near you is wearing. Now write your middle name spelled backwards on the next blank line of your paper and draw a zigzag line around it. Now write 3 colors that are spelled with exactly 6 letters. Now trade back to your original writing utensil and write the word plummish 3 times, skipping every other line and drawing a heart before and after each word. All right, everyone, please now write a bulleted list of 5 things that you can buy at a hardware store. Use a different symbol for each bullet on the list. Now, draw a box on your paper in the upper right-hand corner and mark this box tally marks. In the box, start a tally count for every time you wrote the letter E on this page so far. Each time you use the letter E going forward, add another tally mark to the box. Don't forget to go back to anything you've missed. Okay, we are wrapping up. If you haven't finished all the instructions I gave, please finish up now. And everyone who feels like they did a great job, give yourself a round of applause. Okay. Whew. You did it. Or maybe you didn't. I want to take a moment to reflect on this activity. The purpose of the simulation was to see what it might feel like to be someone who has challenges with executive functioning. Think for a moment about what thoughts or feelings came up for you during the simulation. Think about what strategies, if any, you naturally tried to use to remember the instructions as I went through. What would have helped you be more successful? What assumptions might we make about kids who frequently forget directions, skip steps, or seem disengaged? And how could repeated experiences like this one affect a child's confidence and willingness to participate in school? So those are some big questions, but I hope you were able to take a moment and think about how challenging it might be when it feels like information or requests are coming at you too fast for your brain to keep up. So I've used the words executive functioning multiple times, but what does that really mean? The most helpful way to think about executive functioning is as the air traffic control system of the brain. See, there's a reason why this presentation is airport themed. Just as an airport needs a controller to manage arrivals, departures, and ground traffic to avoid crashes, a child needs executive functioning skills to manage the flow of information, to focus on tasks, filter distractions, and resist their own impulses. Executive functioning is generally broken down into 3 core pillars. The first pillar is working memory. This is the ability to hold information in your mind and use it. The second pillar is cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to switch between tasks and adapt to new changes or problems. The third pillar is inhibitory control. This is the ability to pause and think before acting. One thing you should know, if you learn nothing else from this webinar, is that executive functioning is not an innate skill. We are not born with it. These are skills that are learned over time through modeling and practice. As our brains mature, the skills we are capable of learning also grow. Some additional skills that also fall under executive functioning include planning, time management, task initiation, organization, problem solving, emotional control, attention control, and self-monitoring. As you may be able to tell, executive functioning is extremely important for regulating behavior. And again, I will emphasize that these are not natural or innate abilities. They must be taught through demonstration or modeling, then practiced again and again in order to develop into the skills that help us function as adults. Children's brains are under construction for many years. The brain finally finishes developing around your mid-20s. We typically say 25, give or take a year or two, depending upon other factors. The brain develops roughly back to front. The spinal cord and brainstem develop in utero to help with automatic functions such as breathing, swallowing, and blinking. Once a baby is born, we know that it takes them a while to develop balance and muscle control, and that is their cerebellum developing. Also, their sight at first isn't super clear, but over time it improves. Eventually, as children continue to develop, they start demonstrating basic reasoning and their language skills emerge and develop. The last part of the brain to finish developing is the frontal lobe, the place where executive function resides. This is not to say that executive function doesn't start developing until kids are older, just that other brain functions are finalized first. There are other milestones that help set the foundation for those upper level reasoning skills later in life. For example, in preschool, kids should be able to follow simple two-step rules or directions. They begin to develop the ability to wait their turn and can sometimes manage transitions from task to task with minimal upset. Those abilities continue to develop into the elementary years. Ages 6 to 11, kids begin developing the ability to estimate the passage of time. They may independently start longer tasks and can follow simple checklists. They also start following most social norms. In the teenage years, from about 12 to 18, kids start being able to independently plan complex tasks, problem solve, but also start taking more risks due to the reward system of the brain developing faster than the control system. However, this may also help teens learn and develop decision-making skills. Empathy grows more during this phase, and kids are better at self-regulating upset emotions. Being able to establish and meet long-term goals as well as sustain attention despite distractions develops in the young adult years, which is also the time for the greatest working memory capacity. Self-regulation is one of the biggest tasks within executive functioning. When you think about a young child, being able to self-regulate means being able to go from this top behavior, where the child is physically or verbally acting out, to being able to control their own behaviors in a socially appropriate way. We frequently expect the bottom behavior, but remember, we need to be modeling and allowing kids to practice it, knowing that they will not get it right away. Self-regulation is also known as resilience in brain science. Research has shown that being able to regulate oneself, to adjust to situations without it completely derailing your emotions or attention, is the single biggest predictor of academic, social, and life success. Let me say that again. The ability to self-regulate, to demonstrate resilience, is the single most important skill for a person's academic, social, and overall life success. Thus, it is important we know how to support the development of these critical skills. Now, I do want to make sure I address some common challenges to executive functioning. Different health challenges, be they mental or physical health, can negatively impact the development and ongoing use of executive functioning skills. One of the most common disabilities that directly impacts executive functioning is ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Other challenges or disabilities that impact executive functioning can include autism, depression, substance abuse, traumatic brain injuries, and various toxins such as carbon monoxide. All of these affect the same hardware in the brain, the frontal lobe, just like ADHD. It is important to understand, though, that this doesn't mean someone with ADHD or autism will never have executive functioning skills, but rather they need additional supports. Think of the strategies that we cover next as glasses for the brain. They help out when something else might be going wrong. Now that we understand the mechanics of brain function, let's learn how we, the ground crew, can help land these planes safely. First, we need to model regulation. Kids learn by watching. And who are they watching? Their families, their parents. The way parents treat each other is even more powerful for a child's development of self-regulation than the way the parents treat the child. If parents model dysregulated behaviors themselves, if they do not demonstrate how to regulate their own behaviors and emotions, then a child is going to learn dysregulation. However, if the adults first take care of their own emotions and behaviors, demonstrating skills to calm emotions like deep breathing, taking a break, problem solving, and compromise, the child then learns those behaviors. So, in order to teach a child regulation, we need to demonstrate our own regulation first. The next thing we need to consider is connection before content. We typically try to address behavior backwards, meaning we try to stop a child from doing something we don't want, then have them regulate. We tell them to stop crying, stop interrupting, whatever. But what we need to teach, model, and practice is that the self-regulation piece comes first. Then we can address the undesirable behavior and teach them how to do the correct behavior. So think of it this way. If a child is crying because they're trying to tell you something and you are telling them to wait, they are communicating that they don't have the skill to be patient. So first, we make the connection with them, help them regulate their emotions, and then teach the correct behavior. Another way to think of this is the connection is the fuel that allows the content to move. Without the connection, the plane is stalled on the runway. So, as adults, we need to know how to help a child regulate their emotions. Young children do best when adults practice co-regulation, but even older children can benefit from this approach. The first thing we want to do is sit nearby. We don't want to send the child away. We use a calm, steady tone of voice and recognize the emotions first. You can say something like, "I see this feels hard," or "It looks like you feel angry." A lot of times, identifying the emotion first opens the door to communication with the child. The next step is to offer regulated choices, meaning offer them two things that you are okay with them doing. For example, I might tell my child, "You can sit here with me, or you can sit on the chair right there." I can then offer some sensory supports, like asking if they need a drink of water, a hug, or if they just need a break from talking for a while. Depending upon what they need, I offer that and then just stay present while they get calm. Now, sometimes it's important to note that the older the child, the more likely they are to need time and space away to regulate. That is okay. And as adults, we need to understand that it's okay to take a break from stress, just like we need to walk away from a situation sometimes before coming back and trying to handle it. Once a child has regulated, then you can move forward into addressing whatever led to the upset, still using that calm, matter-of-fact voice. And be sure to start out by listening more than you talk. A child that is using words is using their thinking brain, not their emotional brain. And that is where we want them to end up. So, in short, parents can act as a surrogate prefrontal lobe for their children, providing the structure the child's brain hasn't built yet until they can do it themselves. And parents can do that by supporting with co-regulation, by teaching and practicing positive regulation strategies, by reinforcing their children positively when they do demonstrate good self-regulation, and by encouraging students to use their words to express their emotions. Additionally, parents can encourage emotion regulation by supporting healthy habits like getting enough sleep and making sure kids are eating a variety of nutrients to support brain development. Okay, so we have spent some time covering the emotion regulation piece. Now let's shift and talk about some more concrete strategies that can help with tasks, time management, and attention. Children with weak working memory struggle to identify what needs to be done and in what order. Visual task lists or charts can help make the invisible expectations visible. So here we have 3 styles of visual checklists. The first is a pre-printed step-by-step list, which can be great for regular daily chores. The second is more of a whiteboard style with movable pictures. The nice thing about this one is that you can switch out which tasks are on the to-do side, so there's more customization. And the final one is kind of like the pre-printed one, but it actually has a toggle on the side for the child to move over when they have completed the task. If you have digital calendars, a lot of the new ones also have task lists that you can create. So those are options as well to help kids with keeping track of daily tasks and chores. Now, time management requires the ability to estimate the amount of time a task will take, as well as the amount of time that is currently passing. And if you've ever struggled through a bedtime routine trying to keep your child on track or getting your child to complete their chores within a given length of time, you know the struggle with time management can be real. As adults, we can support time management through some specific tools, which I'll show on the next slide. But it includes using visual timers and clock schedules, breaking down projects into manageable chunks that are written out. You can also play games like Beat the Clock, where you set a timer and challenge your child to get certain tasks or steps done before the time runs out. This is a great way to get kids going, especially if they are dragging their feet starting a routine. So here are some of the visuals that can help. The top 2 images show a time timer, or the top images show a time timer, which is a little analog timer that when you turn the dial shows a strip of color. That color gradually decreases as the time runs down. There are also sand timers that do different time increments. These are great as they don't make any noise when the time runs out, which some kids prefer as a beeping clock might feel stressful. Under those pictures is an example of a clock schedule. The faces of an analog clock are shown along with the specific task or activity that occurs at the time shown. This helps students who are learning to tell time to figure out how the movement of the hands or changing of the minutes, if you're using a digital clock, connects with the changing of activities. The last picture shown is an example of how projects could be broken down. If a child is overwhelmed with a project or even just a big job at home, this can help a parent or adult model how a big task can be broken down into smaller, manageable chunks. Now remember, the goal of all of these tools is to model how to use them so that kids start learning how to do this for themselves. Another challenge we frequently see with kids, and honestly, even as adults, is task initiation, actually getting started on a task. This can feel overwhelming and even paralyzing to some, especially those with disabilities that impact executive functioning. So here are some things that you can do. The first is called body doubling. This is literally just sitting and being present in the room. Your presence acts as both an anchor and motivator to get a child going on a task. The second is the 5-minute rule. This rule is where you set a goal to work for your child. You set your goal for your child to work for 5 minutes. And at the end of the 5 minutes, if they are still not focused and ready, they can take a break. But frequently, 5 minutes is all it takes to start building momentum, and you may find that they are able to keep going. The next strategy is called chunking, and it is literally what it sounds like: breaking assignments or tasks into small chunks that are easier to handle and providing breaks in between each chunk. So, a chunk could be completing a certain number of problems or working for a set length of time and then taking a quick break. And finally, we have eat the frog or climb the ladder. This is where we offer choice on how to complete tasks. They can eat the frog, which is where they start with the hardest task first, and then all the subsequent tasks are easier, or climb the ladder, where you get all of the easy tasks done first and progressively tackle harder assignments. Any of these strategies can be used to help teach and model for kids how to break down tasks that may seem overwhelming at first and how to take that first step in just getting started. There are some other play-based strategies that can also be useful for helping kids build these skills from a young age. All of these games impact executive functioning in different ways. Simon Says, red light, green light, and freeze dance all help with attention, impulse control, and self-regulation. Memory helps with building short-term working memory and attentional control. Uno and Jenga help with planning, strategy, and emotion regulation. And chess and Mancala help with planning, attention, emotional regulation, and working memory. So, if you are looking for a fun way to not only interact with your child, but also help them build their skills, check out these games. Now, I would be remiss if I don't take a moment to address the impact of screen time on children's budding executive functioning. More and more research studies are being conducted showing the link between a child's exposure to screens and their executive functioning development. So, findings suggest that too much screen time in early childhood can undermine the development of attention control, as well as emotion and behavioral regulation, because media use is replacing time that used to be used for self-regulation building activities like play or parent-child interactions. Additionally, content provides overstimulation through the use of frequent camera cuts and quick pacing, which keeps kids' attention without actual cognitive effort. So children are not developing the ability to maintain focus. So what we are seeing as a result of all this extra screen time over the past 20 years or so is an increase in emotional and behavioral problems, including anxiety, depression, aggression, and hyperactivity. Then those kids who are developing those kinds of issues are turning to screens to cope, which further compounds the problem. So, to address these concerns, there are some suggestions we can make. For very young children, such as those under 2, screen time really isn't recommended. That being said, if you do introduce screens at an early age, make sure it's high quality programming. Avoid having kids use media while they're on their own. For kids 2 to 5, an hour a day is typically what is recommended. That being said, a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work as well for children as they grow, so it's important to consider what's appropriate for your own child. Keep in mind, the quality of the media your child is exposed to is more important than the type of technology. So to ensure quality screen time, preview games and apps. There are organizations like Common Sense Media that have programming ratings to help you determine what's appropriate. Even better, consider watching or playing with your child to see what they are interacting with. Look for interactive options that engage your child versus just pushing or swiping and staring at the screen. Use parental controls to block or filter content, and then make sure your child is close by so you can supervise. This also helps you be able to discuss what you're watching and educate your child about advertising, commercials, or even behaviors being displayed by characters. You want to avoid fast-paced programming, which kids actually have a hard time understanding, and violent content, and also apps with a lot of distracting content. So kids have a hard time telling the difference between ads and factual information. So consider blocking ads as well. With older students or older kids, it's a good idea to encourage tech-free times, like during dinner, or even set up a designated tech-free zone. You should also set weekly screen time limits and stick to them. There are some great control apps that can help with this that actually limit how long a child can use a device. To protect their sleep, keep all screens out of the bedroom and make sure device is charged somewhere else overnight. Remember, that screen light can mess with their sleep cycle. So, a good rule of thumb is to have them power down all tech 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. Plus, keep an eye on what they're doing online and have those important talks about appropriate behavior. As we discussed, their brains are still developing, which can sometimes lead to impulsive actions online. And without the immediate feedback that comes with in person behaviors, their brains aren't learning that higher level thinking about their own behavior. All right, so as we prepare to land today's presentation, I want to leave you with one final thought. Executive functioning is a long haul flight, not a short commute. There will be moments of turbulence, and there will be days when it feels like the fog just won't lift. But remember, your child's brain is still under construction, and you are the most important part of their ground crew. By modeling regulation, prioritizing connection over content, and providing the navigation tools discussed today, you are helping them build the skills they need to eventually take flight on their own. So thank you for being here today and for the incredible work you do every day for your children. And with that, I will be turning our program back over to Face.
Thank you so much, Meredith, for your wealth of information. Should you have any questions about this webinar or need additional information and/or resources, please contact us at FACE, F-A-C-E, at cpschools.com. Keep in mind that Let's Talk is the perfect two-way communication for any comments, questions, suggestions, or concerns that you may have. Also, you can stay connected to Chesapeake Public Schools through the different platforms listed on the screen. Make sure you scan the QR code to download our app to receive notifications about important events. Remember, families and communities work better together.